Hello traders, and welcome to the latest in the series of interviews with students of the Learn to Trade the News course. Next up, I am delighted to be joined by Gavin, who is from London in the UK. The reason why I specifically wanted to interview Gavin is due to the fact that I've seen a very sharp uptick in his understanding and therefore application of news-based trading over the past few months, and naturally supporting this has been a gradual improvement in his results. In addition to this, Gavin's progression has now enabled him to evolve and trade the slightly trickier central bank speeches and other news events which actually fall outside of the core course curriculum. I'm sure that Gavin will be the first to admit that he is yet to become the finished article. However, he has come on leaps and bounds since learning the fundamental side of trading, and the thing that pleases me more than anything has been to see and hear his confidence and belief grow. Gavin, as you'll soon learn, is a naturally enthusiastic and positive chap, but his passion for trading has hit new heights as things really start to cement for him, and he sees trading as an even more viable career path. I hope you not only learn a lot from the interview, but it once again gives you the inspiration to really go for it wherever you may be on your trading journey. So first things first, Gavin, thank you so much for taking time out of your weekend to conduct this interview. It's much appreciated. As we did with the Paul interview, I'm just going to go through a series of questions and just really want to hear your feedback in regards to those questions. So thank you very much for your time today.
Not at all, not at all, Tom. It's a great pleasure, and thanks very much for asking me. I've found it very stimulating, actually. This course, really enjoyed what I'm learning, and I'm hoping to be putting it to good use in the future.
Excellent. So if we can kick off with you just giving us a bit of background on yourself with regards to your current occupation. I think people always like to hear about the lives of the students outside of trading to see if it fits and is similar to their own circumstances. So a bit about your current occupation and a little bit of your brief trading history prior to you coming on to learning about the fundamentals via the news-based course.
Okay, indeed. Well, I'm a photographer by profession. It's what I've been doing for many years now, and I enjoy that, and I probably intend, in a way, to keep going with that. But the beauty of what I'm learning, I think, with the trading and the fundamental trading, is that I'm learning how I can sort of mix the two together. As a freelance photographer, obviously I have a little bit of flexibility with my own time, which is brilliant, and gives me the opportunity to pay attention to the trading side of things as well. Because of the fact that I work, I'm sure that most of us are in a similar situation. We have other jobs and other commitments. I started by looking at the option of end of day trading, and some years ago now, probably like sort of 3-4 years ago, I did a course there, followed that up, and found it sort of compelling and interesting. But at the same time, it was frustrating. We were shown how to trade technically, specifically not to pay attention to fundamentals, because that would cloud the trades. Apart from the big NFP thing, outside of that, we were told to just look for the technical setups and go from there. And yes, often you've got nice trades and nice moves, get into a nice run of things, and then something would just kind of turn around and go against you for no particular reason. You felt you had all your boxes checked. Nice sort of, nice retracements, nice resistance or support levels, nice Fibonacci's, etc. All these things, nice sort of diversions on, the stochastics or whatever. And it would then, for no particular reason, it would move off, and then it would kick back and go against you. And this was very frustrating, actually. And often I found myself just kind of drifting away from it, the whole process. And then a little bit down the line, I think, oh my God, I've got to get back to it because I'm sure there's something here that can work. And so it was a bit stop, start, stop, start.
Yeah, so you found it was just, although it had some very, very good times, the technicals let you down on other times, which made it very inconsistent.
They did, and it slightly undermined my confidence, not to the extent that I ever stopped it, but it just kind of made me sort of, start, as I was saying. So I was, I would say I was sort of struggling to get really sort of properly out of the starting blocks, really.
Yeah, and I think
looking for something else to add to it.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a really, really important point there, because, as you know, I'm obviously endorsing the fundamental side of trading, but I also am a big fan of the technical side of trading as well, because I think there is a lot in the technical side of trading that can be used in the markets alongside the fundamentals, but purely on their own, they are very, very inconsistent. And you hit the nail on the head there in terms of it affects your confidence. And as a trader, when you lose your confidence, that can be very, very damaging, and it sort of reduces your optimism about trading as a full-time endeavour, or it being a serious contributor to your overall income. Because a lot of the people that I work with, yourself included, want to get a decent income coming from trading, but for that to be on a consistent basis, and by purely trading the technicals, you always have that fear at the back of your mind that one month's going to be okay, followed by a really bad month the next month, and it's like you've got no confidence in the trading side of things or your ability to earn on a consistent basis, and that's what puts off people from really taking that big leap of trading as a full-time endeavour, or it being one of the major contributors to their overall income. So that was an important thing. But what's really, really good is that you do have the technical skills that you can bring into the fundamental side and merge them together, which you have been doing. So coming from the technical background to fundamentals, was the fundamental side of things fairly new, so it came as quite a new learning for you? You hadn't done much fundamentals before.
It was very much so. The only thing I'd been aware of in the past was the non-farm payrolls. As something, the big sort of monthly thing, something to stay away from. Other than that, in fact, I was generally encouraged not to think about the fundamentals, because that would muddy the picture a bit. But I found actually that this has kind of opened a window, and you can sort of see behind the scenes, in a way, in the workings of trades and why they're moving in one direction or another. So this whole thing about tuning into central banks, getting sort of an understanding of policy divergence, and then looking for particular news releases or data releases to kind of pair that up with. There's been a whole new sort of sort of vision really onto the whole process of trading, and it's really quite, it's exciting, and it's stimulating, because you can suddenly see, actually, I can see how this is working, and I can be a part of this.
Brilliant, yeah, because essentially technicals do not drive the FX markets or any markets at all. Trends, big trends, and all the things that come with trends, such as trend lines, Fibonacci's, are driven by the moves in the market, are driven by fundamentals. The technicals are more from an efficiency into the market. So
getting good prices
now that you're aware of the fundamentals, has that helped you understand why a market moves in the way it does, or why certain currencies move in the way they do?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a few months ago, I didn't really understand it at all, but now the picture is much clearer. Tuning into, and it's also, the whole thing is much more interesting in a way, because you're sort of part of what's going on. You feel like you're more part of what's going on in the financial markets. You can tune into what the big banks are saying, what the sort of what the central banks are saying. You can look at data now and see how that's going to help or hinder a possible trade idea or trade plan. It's a big sort of step forward in a way, and also makes the whole thing become more real. In that I'm starting to feel that actually, yes, this is possible. I can see how it's working, and I've got results that are coming in and showing me that I'm actually making progress, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah, no, I think
I'm feeling really positive about it.
That's brilliant to hear, and I think, again, another interesting point you raised there is it is interesting, because sometimes people get this misconception that it's scary, it's a bit too complicated, it's a bit too complex, but really you get, outside of the trading, you get a fantastic understanding of the world's economies. Before the fundamentals, I didn't realise how much of an impact milk prices had on the New Zealand economy. I didn't realise how much of an impact oil had on the Canadian economy. I didn't realise how much of an impact just simple comments from central bank speakers would affect local currency. So you get a good awareness and an appreciation of the global economy outside of trading. And then our job as a trader is obviously to utilise that information to make better informed trading decisions. Now, one of the misconceptions that I get a lot, which is completely understandable, but I have to obviously try and address that, is that learning the fundamentals is really, really hard. Now, you've been on the course for a few months now, and yes, it hasn't just sunk in from day one, but you've gradually tuned into the market. So what's your feedback? I know a lot of people get attracted to the simplicity of technicals, and get scared away from the what is seen as quite complex subjects with the fundamentals. What would your feedback and comments to other people be about the complexity of learning the fundamentals and getting tuned into the market?
Well, my feeling is that it's not that complicated because, well, partly you're doing a lot of analysis for us, which is brilliant. So I can get to my charts, to my desk in the morning, read what you've analysed and the hints and tips that you've given us. And of course, that's enormously beneficial. And then you couple that with sort of going on and having a look at the reports and things myself. That's brilliant. So to begin with, I wasn't really going straight into the end of the intraday. I was kind of using that more in my end of day trades, and that actually that significantly helped. And so I wasn't just sort of scanning and looking for technical setups here, there, or anywhere. I was now looking for technical setups on an end of day thing, but with currencies that were, suitably matched.
Brilliant.
And that was working. And that was interesting. It was more recently than I thought. I thought I'd start, delving more into the intraday.
And did that make your life easier or harder from a time perspective? Because
much easier, really.
Yeah, because again, misconception is that to know and trade the news, you have to spend hours at your charts when really you don't. Once you tune into the markets, and as you say, you go to the effort like you do on a regular basis every day, just doing a little bit of reading. You tune into the market, and then you can identify the currency pairs where you have a very strong directional bias on, and for those that you don't, you can ignore. You don't need to go through 25 different currency pairs. You can have laser-like focus on the 3 or 4 where you are confident in the direction, the likes of Kiwi dollar shorts or Euro dollar shorts or, for example, dollar yen shorts. You can have laser-like focus on those currencies and ignore the others. Because as a trader, our job is to put our money or risk our money on a trade which has the highest probability of success, where the odds are heavily stacked in our favour. And when you've got a strong fundamental bias and you trade in line with that bias, that's where you start to put the odds in your favour.
Yeah.
But
I totally agree.
I agree. Like, that's one positive feedback that I've had from a lot of students is it's actually made their trading more time efficient.
Yes.
They're not spending longer at the charts. They're actually spending less time at the charts because the fundamentals can help them focus on certain currency pairs, but also focus on certain events. So they can schedule at the start of the week exactly where they want to be at the charts or when they can be at their charts. So it makes them much more time efficient. So that again is a real advantage to us who most traders that are doing a full-time job or they're a contractor or whatever, they've got other commitments to do. So we can't spend all day at the charts and probably don't want to spend all day at the charts. So having that flexibility to dip in and out throughout the week is a fantastic trait of news-based trading.
I was making that mistake a bit at the beginning with Intro. I was thinking, my God, I've got to get to every single news event I possibly can. And of course, it's impossible to do that. So I was sort of rushing around, trying to get to my charts, probably getting into trades I probably shouldn't have. But now I'm more laid back about it. And you just, as you say, select the things that you think will fit in with whatever your other commitments are during the week, and not worry, because, as I always say, there are other opportunities around the corner. So
exactly, and as you prove recently, with your trading, I think it was a week or so ago when you traded milk prices,
Yes,
you traded oil inventories, and you traded something else, and within a day you'd made, I can't remember how much it was,
yeah,
but within a few hours you'd made a really, really good return, and
it was
that
a nice.
goes to
Yes,
show that you had time available on
mm,
that day, and you took
yes,
advantage of it. The next day, you weren't available, you didn't trade. So it's trying to find those opportunities around your current commitments, and then obviously taking advantage of it when it comes. And you know now, because you've been on the course for a few months,
yeah,
you know now that it only takes 1, 2, 3 good trades in a month
yeah,
to make a half decent return. But the most important thing is doing it consistently each and every
yes.
single month.
And I find that satisfying. Think, like as you said the other day when there was, I think it was the GBP CPI data, and then there was the USD, the dollars, US dollar, and then the milk weights, and there was just a few pips to be taken here and there, and it was nice to sort of, to use the knowledge and what we've learned to be able to do that. And although it wasn't a massive move, it was, I felt there were pips nicely earned.
Yeah,
And
no, absolutely.
I was pleased with those.
And as I said in my report that I sent out this week, is those pips add up. They really start to add up. If you make 50 pips in a day using the risk management approach taught in the course, that's 0.5%. That's half a
Yes,
percent, which you can make in literally some of the trades that we've taken recently. 10 minutes, 5
yes,
minutes, 20
yes.
minutes, 1 hour, 0.5%. That is incredible.
It's
So
amazing.
it
Yeah,
takes the pressure off having to trade every single event and says to you, I can make trading the news work around my current commitments, whatever they may be.
exactly, and that's what I've been finding, and it's exciting. Yeah, it is. You can actually see it working.
And going,
Lots, yeah. Oh,
sorry,
great. No, I just said obviously not don't want to sort of get ahead of myself and too sort of, but it's great to be able to see that these things are coming together, piecing these things together, the data, they're looking at the opportunities, and that there are pips to be made. It's brilliant.
absolutely fantastic. Now, just going back to our earlier point where you talked about how learning about the news helps you understand why the market moves in the way it does, rather than before where you maybe saw the market move 100 pips and you were scratching your head going, why has that happened?
Yes.
Sometimes people go, well, it's easy to say after the event. Does news, in your opinion, does learning about the news help you plan things in advance, or do you do things reactively? Can you be very proactive, or is it a reactive style of trading?
Well, with this, it's much more of a sort of proactive in that you can have a look at the data, you can have a look at what's coming up, you can make a plan, look at your own commitments for the day or the week, and see what you can make work. So I'm not just, which is what I did in the past, come to the chart, think, oh look, there's a technical setup, let's get in there. Now I can pair that with information, valid information, and take much more sort of informed decisions on what I'm going to trade or what I'm going to leave.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it's that sense of being able to plan ahead as well, which gives another tier or another level to the fundamental based trading.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
And does that help you? Does it help it make it, because decisiveness for a trader is really, really hard. Knowing when to push the button, and sometimes with the technicals, and again, I don't want to dismiss the technicals too much, but I just want to get my point of view across. Sometimes the technicals can give you so much information that it makes you indecisive. But
Yes.
with scheduled news events such as inflation readings that you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
does that help you become more decisive because it's pretty much black and white? If it comes in as you want, you trade it, and if it doesn't, you don't.
Yes, it is. It is almost a black and white situation. And I suppose the only thing I find, or it's important, is the degree. Something like this month's NFP, there was it was a no-brainer. It was a massive, brilliant sort of feed data point, and so it was just a question of just pressing the button.
Yeah.
Perhaps with the CPI data, I think it was the other day, of the GBP, whereas a little bit more, I think the core was a tiny bit better, but the main read route came in the same. So there's a bit of a sort of do I don't I, but then thinking, and then maybe you sort of think I did take it, but I didn't stay for very long. So in those sort of incidences, in that kind of instance, I would exercise probably a lot more caution and maybe sort of just be happy with a few pips.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking I'm going to sit this out and wait for it to hit my.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic point, and this was a point
Yeah, so it's just like scalping a few, maybe take 5 or 10 or 15 or whatever, and be happy with that.
And this is such an important point, and this is a point that was raised in my last interview with Jean. Is she said she used to be a little bit embarrassed about taking pips too soon, because it was like, no, you must hold your position for 1 hour exactly.
Yes.
As I keep mentioning to you guys, is the markets aren't perfectly the same every single time. They're just not. They're imperfect. However, we in those circumstances, we must use flexibility. So you've used a great example there. The last jobs report from America was absolutely clear as day. Clear as day. It was by the dollar as soon as you saw those figures. Easy peasy. However, not every single event is going to be that easy to judge. So with the pound data, which wasn't as convincing, you quite rightly did, as I've been suggesting to you guys, is use flexibility in those occasions where you maybe reduce your stop loss, or you reduce your risk, or as you did, you took your pips off the table a little bit sooner than you normally would do. And that's because there are varying degrees of news events. Some that will make the market move hundreds of pips, some that will only make it move a few pips. But if you can make pips on the majority of your trades, at the end of the month, things are going to look pretty good. So that's a really, really powerful element that I try and convey, is that the markets are not the same every single time. So heed that information. If they're not as convincing as they were previously, then adapt your approach. Don't be rigidly fixed to one style of approach, because that's just going to crush you. So if you took the same approach, saying, I need to hold my trade for exactly 3 hours, in that first trade, you'd have probably done quite well. But on the second trade, after probably half an hour, the market loses its momentum because it wasn't as impactful as the previous data point. So you then end up losing a handful of pips, which you shouldn't have done. So the fact that you're now understanding that is testament to why you're seeing some improvements in your results, because you're not hanging on to a trade because you hope it's going to go further. You're taking on board information that's given to you either via your commentator on your Squawk, or you're reading Forex Live, or you've read my reports. You're gleaning that information. You're saying, this trade is not as clean cut as previous ones, so I need to make sure that I adjust, and if pips are given to me, I'm going to take them a lot sooner than I normally would. So that's been brilliant to see, because we do need to adapt to market conditions, because they're not going to be the same every single time.
Yes, I find that's really, and because also on the technical side, with the end of day technical trading, I find that you're a bit more sort of bound by rigid rules. In that, you enter at this point, you exit, you follow accordingly, and there's less flexibility. So and
I do understand why that is taught. It's because it's trying to keep people on the straight and narrow with not giving them too much. But if that's going to stop you from being consistent, then you need to really take heed of that. And even though my course teaches a core foundation of certain things, which I need to keep fairly black and white. The mentoring service that accompanies that gives then all the added elements around that, the intricacies that people can then evolve their trading from that point.
Yes, absolutely.
But still, one of the core things that I do teach on the course is to obviously have that flexibility. Not every single news event is going to be the same as all of them. So to make sure that we're adapting to whatever the market is telling us, and because you now know the fundamentals, the market is constantly communicating to you. From a technical perspective, it's not really communicating to you, but the fundamentals are communicating the mood of the market to you, so you can have your finger on the pulse of the market at all times. And if anything changes, then you can use that information to quickly come out of a trade. And that adaptability, I think, makes the difference between profit and loss, because on those occasions where your trade doesn't do as you expect, if you're able to cut those losses very, very quickly, that's going to leave you in a very good position at the end of the month, because the cumulative of your losing trades will be very, very small, whilst those nice chunky trades that go and go and go are the ones that are going to see you to a decent profit.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree, and it's great to be able to to do that, to see how something's going, thinking, well, right, I think this is not quite what I'm working, so I'm going to come out now, but I've got myself 10 pips, and that's brilliant.
Excellent. Wonderful. So in regards to the course, obviously the course that I built was an online course, and this may be slightly different to those that you've been on before. So what are your thoughts in return, in regards to the actual course, the course structure, the topics, etc., an overall value for money for those that are maybe listening to this and going, well, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it, but I'm not quite sure.
Well, the online aspect. It's great because we've got fantastic access to yourself, to your, immediate responses to emails and queries. The course itself, the online Learn to Trade the News course, is brilliant, and you're continually sort of updating it and putting on your own experiences and thoughts and trades. So it's an ongoing sort of learning resource. It's not just a course that goes from A to B and that's it.
Yeah,
it's there. It's like it's live the whole time. I think it's, and in a way, there's a much closer contact than there was on courses I've been in the past, where you would sort of book an appointment and you go and see a coach once a month, and you'd have half an hour's mentoring, and that would be it. And then, and then you'd book your next course, your next sort of mentoring session. And this is a much closer, much more ongoing, daily contact, daily feedback. I find it really, really, tremendous value, actually.
yeah, because a lot can happen in 24 hours. A lot can happen in 5 hours. A lot can happen in an hour, can't it? So that the ability for me to be able to add a discussion to the course, or to send you out the three reports.
Those three reports are great.
You're covered for all of the major sessions. You'll hear me say this a lot, is keeping your finger on the pulse of the market and tuning into the mood of the market, because that's why, going back to our earlier points in terms of the market's constantly communicating to us via the fundamentals. So we need to obviously tune into that, take heed of it, and use it in our trading going forward. Now, I appreciate that not everyone can spend as long as I spend on my charts, but that's where the service arose from, is I can be essentially your analyst, where I can do all of the work, identify the key market moving events, and then filter that to you, ideally as best as possible in layman's terms, so it makes a little bit more sense for people that are new to the fundamental side of trading. And that gives you the ability to say, actually, no, Tom's report told me that actually of the inflation figures, of the two inflation figures, this one is a little bit more important. So I'm going to pay a bit more attention to that, because Tom's identified it as more market moving. And as we saw with the pound, even though the headline figure came in as expected, we wouldn't normally trade that. The core, which I'd identified as being more important, did come in better and saw the pound find some strength. So little tidbits like that, even though I can't give you, due to regulations, I can't physically say trade this and trade that, because that's deemed as investment advice, and that's a very grey area. But I can give you some very, very subtle hints, and then empower you, because you've got the theory from the course, empower you to then take that information, take the key highlights, and use that to build a trade plan or a trade idea. Because essentially that's all I do as a trader, is I'm looking at what's happened in the previous session. Okay, really fantastic employment data out of Australia. So even though I wasn't up at midnight to trade it, I'm going to use that information to build a trading plan. Can I find a weak currency to put against a strong Aussie? Okay, let's look for maybe an opportunity buying Aussie Kiwi. So your job is to, you're essentially doing the same as me, but using the reports and the ongoing discussions to do that. And then where possible, I will be obviously updating you with the trades that I take, the trades that obviously go really well, the trades that most of my bad trades are normally around about break even or small losses. So I'll post those as well, so you can see that.
And that's great to see those as well.
Because it's important to know that that is our approach. Keep losses really, really small. Let
the
really good trades run, and that gives you your net profit at the end of the at the end of the month. So for me to have the ability to constantly update you is very, very important, because things, if I was to just give you the course and that be it, then that for me is a very dangerous thing, because you'd think I'm going to take this information and apply it in exactly the same way every single month, when we know the markets are ever changing.
Yes, exactly.
We know currencies are ever changing, so hopefully the currency watch list that's within the course,
that's really useful,
keeps you in tune with the changes in the currencies. But you're now getting to the point where you as an individual, because you're working hard at this and committing a lot of time and energy to it, you are getting to the point where you are tuning into the central banks yourself and knowing what currencies are strong and weak, and more importantly, why they're strong and weak. So that the course is initially to give you an introduction into it, for you then to be able to do that for yourself, so you can then every single week identify those currency pairs that you believe have a high probability of either going up and you buy them, or coming down and you sell them.
Yes, absolutely. And going back, one of the things also which I think is great about the course is, as you just mentioned, was that everything, you're posting everything. So there's a sort of honesty to it also. Even if it's a trade that doesn't work, it gets posted and we can see why you took it. The fact it didn't quite work out, is just the way it goes sometimes. But it's really interesting to see all these different levels, from the ones that really work, the ones that don't quite work.
Yeah,
And so often, so often one's kind of drawn into these courses by promises of big rewards and big returns, but it doesn't really. It's not that. It's nice to see that trading, even with the professionals, it's not always every day hundreds of pips, dozens of pips to be made. It's great to see.
And the days that I struggle or don't take a trade, I'll tell you that, because I think it's important that,
Yeah,
because when you see me do it, you're more likely to do it yourself. And when you come out of a trade and it hasn't gone as you expected, and that's happened to me on innumerable occasions, it doesn't affect you, because you go, actually, no, that happens to Tom, and hopefully you just see, actually, I've learnt the theory, and now all of these trade examples that Tom's posting, his live trades, are exactly how he's taught me on the course. So that gives you the belief and the confidence to go and do it yourself. Yes, I may have been doing it for longer, so I'm more efficient at reacting to news and interpreting it, but it's only because I've been doing it longer. It doesn't make me any better than yourself or any of the other students. It's just I've been doing it for longer, and as you've seen, and I can see this more, probably I can see it more as a person that's teaching you have seen rapid progression. The way you talk about the fundamentals has massively improved. Now you're talking exactly how I talk to some of my peers in the city, in terms of talking about central banks, talking about their stance, talking about the major data points that they're watching and how it could impact their currency, and forward looking, and all of a sudden now you're probably finding in the back of your mind, you know that Kiwi's weak, you know that Euro's weak, you know that the dollar's strong, so you have these in the back of your mind, so you're going to become more efficient at pairing currencies together to find the currency pairs that are going to produce you the best returns. And that's only down to, yes, obviously the course has helped give you the theoretical side, but you can only lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. But I've led you to the water, and you've been very, very active. You've been very thirsty.
I'm sure
it, and that's testament to you, because you can have all the theory in the world, but if you don't go and utilize it and put it into practice and get onto a real account and see how the emotional side works as well, you're never going to cement it. And just while on that point, how have you found the news or learning the fundamentals has helped you from a psychological perspective? Because I do feel that trading emotion is probably 90% important in trading. How have you found learning the fundamentals has helped?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, they've helped enormously. I always have a slight case of the jitters, though.
we all do. I'm not going to lie. I still get my heart beats
as
a
the
little
seconds
bit
are counting down.
Yeah, no, it builds a suspense, doesn't it, when you hear the analyst go 10 seconds, 5 seconds. It's almost, you can feel your heartbeat going faster.
My God, am I going to take it? Is exactly. But to be fair and honest, I've kind of sort of got the plan in my head. The data needs to do this if I'm going to press the trigger one way or another. The analyst needs to say this, and so that takes away a lot of that sort of sense of leaping into the unknown. Obviously, because there's a plan there, and there's a you've got a prediction, and then actually I find it's more easy just to step aside if it's not always a bit of a sort of, funny enough, that's sort of that's a sort of relief. It's phew, I don't need to worry about this. It's not right.
Yeah. No, you do. It's strange you should say that, because I have the same thing sometimes, especially when we've had a lot of events all in the short period of time. It's almost like, oh, finally, I don't have to trade this one, because of course whenever we're a trader, whenever we're in a trade, we're stressed.
Yes, exactly.
We're stressed because we've got money on the line. So when we're in a trade, we're stressed. So coming into the point where we're just about to click the button and start the stress, of course, it's a very anxious point.
But it does. But it makes a huge difference to the kind of fundamental level of confidence that you go into a trade or not, because you've got some clear ideas of where it should be going. And if it's not for some reason, then you just out you come, really. But I tend to so I think I've been following your lead a bit. I tend to be quite trigger happy, and I'm happy to sort of be be content with 10 to 20 pips.
Although,
unless it's one of those NFP things where you just know,
yeah,
just leave it. You're
again,
confident.
varying
It's going to be
degrees
volatility.
of news.
Let the volatility sort of ride itself out and stick with it, because it's only going in one direction.
Brilliant, but you are going to be like me in terms of, I always say that I'm happy to have bank pips, and I think I say that more because I have to say it, but we have seen time and time and time again, and you included, because you're like me, you like to take profits off the table quite quickly. Time and time again, the moves just carry on going for hundreds and hundreds of pips, and I always say to myself, why didn't I just hold the position? But that's hindsight trading.
I know.
It's easier. It's easy to say after the event. At the end of the day, if we make 20 to 100 pips in an hour or less than an hour, we should be delighted with that.
Brilliant,
we should be absolutely delighted with that. And bringing me on to that point, do you find that helps with your emotional stress levels? Because whenever we take a trade and we've got money at risk, our hard-earned money at risk, we're stressed. As human beings, that's inevitable. We can't get away from that.
Yes.
But do you find that now that you've moved a bit more to intraday trading, where you're in and out of trades quite quickly, do you find that now that helps? Because once you're in and out, you've had the stress for 15, 20, 25 minutes, rather than holding a position end of day for maybe 7 to 10 days, where you've got the stress of the trade for 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, actually. I'm sort of much happier once I'm out of the trade.
Yeah, because this is a point that has been raised again by a number of traders, how the news events has actually reduced the level of stress. Because I used to think, and this was me bringing a misconception into it, when I was purely an end-of-day trader, I used to think, I'm going to stay end-of-day because it's less stressful. I don't want to be trading intraday where everything's moving quite quickly. But in a way, that was absolutely the wrong way to look at it. When you're in and out of a trade within an hour, boom, the stress is gone, the risk is off the table, and you're done. You can then relax and move on to the next opportunity. But if you're holding a position for several days, then you're stressed for several days, thinking about that trade for several days. And more importantly, that trade has to go several days through all the various news events that are scheduled on the calendar. So it has more potential for volatility.
And you just don't quite know what's going to happen. You're sort of slightly on a sort of wing and a prayer, hoping it's going to continue. But
absolutely, I think
I find much better.
I think you were looking at a trade recently on the end of day charts, and you just ran it by me, saying, "What do you think?" And I think I said, I wouldn't do it because there's no fresh reasons to keep the move going. So now you can utilise the news, because you can still find good setups on the daily chart. But has there then been some current or fresh fundamental reasons why that move should continue? Because if there's not, it's more likely to have a bit of a pullback. But if you are in a trade and there's just been, let's say, Mr. Draghi comes out and they cut their interest rates again, or they add to their QE program, even if it's massively oversold, it's going to continue because there is fresh reasons for it to do so, fresh fundamental reasons for it to do so.
Yes.
So as a technical trader, we can look at charts and think, it's overbought or it's oversold, or there's a strong level of resistance or a strong level of support. But if news comes out to support the direction on a trade, and it's very, very solid, impactful news, the technicals will get blown out of the water.
Yes.
Absolutely blown out of the water. It won't matter if it's oversold. It will carry on falling. It won't matter if there's a support level there. It will carry on falling if they extend their QE program, for example.
Yes. I completely understand. And I think that's having that kind of extra that window that's been opened onto the workings of the market has taken a lot of that sort of niggling stress out of getting in and out of trades. I mean, apart from the initial sort of build up of jitters, as a countdown to a particular trade you're hoping to take. But to be able to get into a trade and out of it quickly and then move on to something else, I think psychologically is great. It works for me much better, actually. And much happier with that.
Wonderful. And I know you were similar to Paul in terms of it's a very clever technique to build your confidence and build your belief and build that all-important trader emotion. You were just for in the early days just watching events rather than trading them, just watching them for the first few weeks.
I did, yeah.
And then you get to the point where you go, I can't now not take these trades, because you continuously see. So you build your plan before the event. So
That's
you say,
right.
if it comes out like this, I'll trade it. If it doesn't, I won't. And then you follow through and hypothetically trade them in your mind. And then you come to the conclusion after a few weeks going, I'd have actually made a significant amount of pips there. And I know that's how Paul moved from
Yes.
trading on the demo to then going to live, is because his hypothetical trades were continuously working out. And that built his belief, built his
Yes.
confidence, and moved him into a very strong position to trading live. I all too often see people that go from never trading before to learning how to trade and then go live straight
Straight.
away, and then wonder why they're all over the place from an emotional perspective. What I do
Yes.
encourage people to do is just watch some of the events first and foremost, build your confidence, because you will. I'm fairly confident that you will see a lot of events that work out as you expect, and then when that confidence starts to build, that is a nice time to then evolve over to the live account, because you're less likely to be affected by the emotions because you've built a strong mentality for trading, or a strong belief system.
Absolutely. No, that was exactly the kind of approach I had as well. Is to stand on the sides, look at these things, and then start and make plans that seem to be working out. And I thought, it's time to sort of to do this live really, and it does, but it's important to do that, because then the emotional side becomes a reality,
Yeah.
and that you only, I think, that's just experience and getting a little bit of success under your belt, and you start to think, well, actually, this is working. I can do this, and you start to become easier about it as well. But
Brilliant.
there's definitely a big step up, I think, from, as you say, from going to the theoretical to the
Oh,
to
massive,
real.
massive, massive. Even
Um,
if it's a small account, it's still real money, and
yeah,
but it's an important step to take, because traders can change from doing really, really well on a demo account to then
yes,
not following through in the same way on their live account, because emotions are affecting them. That's why I think it's very important to come onto a live account pretty confident in what you're doing
yes,
beforehand, because that then makes the transition a
a
little
little bit
bit
easier.
easier to take.
Mm,
Not easy, but a little bit easier.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, completely agree. Actually, so yeah, no, so that worked well for me as well. Actually,
Brilliant, fantastic. So, any particular trades, recent or in the early days, that stand out for you that you can tell people about,
well,
that you
the,
did
the
really well on?
recent one that stands out for me it wasn't the things I briefly mentioned earlier was not wasn't the sort of big NFP things or anything like that. It was the little bit of sort of hunting. It was the last week's GBP CPI data,
Yeah,
which was sort of on the edge a bit, but was positive, followed by the USD data, the US dollar data, and then the milk quota, and just taking a few pips from those.
yeah,
I had the day at my desk then, so I was able to spend the time looking at the options, but it was that pairing of the fundamentals with the news, and I sort of and keeping my eye on the squawk feedback, the live feed rather, and all these kind of things. They sort of came into play, and I was able to just sort of get a few pips off this one and a few pips off that, and I think it totaled about 30 pips in the end. But it was very satisfying.
yeah. And that was in
30 pips, just you know, waiting on the side, waiting for this to come in. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I can get in there.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely fantastic.
don't hang around for long because it's not a big read. It's not a big data point, but it's enough just to push it on a bit further.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And
and
I always think of the economic news events as your big bonus trades, the ones that really run.
mm,
Your 80 pips, your 70 pips, those are your bonus trades. But your almost your salary are the
mm,
30 pips here, the 30 pips there, because 30 pips doesn't sound like a lot, but
yes,
it's just shy of 0.5%. So
yes,
50 pips would be essentially 0.5% growth on your account. And if you're doing
yes,
that like every single day, or 3 days a week, or even 2 days a week, that's going to be a nice contribution come the end of the month, and certainly
yes,
enough to get you anywhere between that target that we have of between 1 to
yeah.
5%. So
At this stage, I'm just really happy to be, to be making a bit of profit. Actually, I'm not trying to get, not setting my sights too high. It's
no,
just
just
trying to get the consistency going.
consistency. Yeah, that is the thing. And the great thing about it is you're not focusing on the money. You're focusing on the
Mm,
process and not the prize. You're focusing
yes,
on consistency rather than trying to make hundreds of pounds, which is focusing your
yes,
mind on the money. You're actually now focusing your mind on the process. How do I become
yes.
consistent? How do I really get these fundamentals to work for me? How
Mm,
can I complement my technicals on top of the fundamentals and be confident that most months I'm going to squeeze a profit out,
yeah.
because most months there is an abundance of news events which I now am very, very confident of taking advantage of.
Yes, no, it's a great feeling, I have to say. I really feel I've taken that next step up,
And
actually.
again, it's like 4 months, around about 4 months. So it's still early days for you on
Yeah.
the news based side of
Mm,
things. And I think in another 4 months you'll be even stronger as well. So
yes.
it's just about continuing what you're doing and continuously getting feedback and using that experience
It's
in future trades to your
it's
advantage.
completely. I mean, it's been a fantastically helpful course. Actually, it's really taken me to that next step, and made it a reality now in my eyes. I've suddenly feeling this is something that I can do and something that I can achieve, and
Brilliant.
it's it's a really good feeling.
Wonderful, and that's obviously, as you know, music to my ears,
Yeah. No,
which
it
is
sounds
great. But and
it's great.
especially for guys like yourself and my other students who have committed to this and have committed not only money but also time in order to make it work. So
Yeah.
we won't get anything out of life unless we commit to something and put the effort in to get it. I feel
Totally
that
agree.
anything worth doing has to have an element of commitment, and you've shown that, and you're starting to reap the benefits. And it's still early days, so I'm
Yes.
very excited about the future development of you as well.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks, Tom.
Brilliant. So
It's been a great
wonderful,
experience so far. So
wonderful.
thank you.
So what would you say to traders who don't feel that the fundamentals are important for their trading?
Well, I mean, it's quite
Because
clear.
you've come from both aspects now,
But,
where you didn't feel the fundamentals are important, to now learning about the
mm,
fundamentals and seeing how important they are.
mm.
What would you?
Well, it's sort of fairly black and white now to me. Uh, that they're vitally important, and even if you're only just trading end of day, um, it's having an awareness of the fundamentals makes a significant difference to how you trade. Before that, as I said, I'd be just looking for technical setups, some solid resistance or support, all that kind of thing. Now I would look at that, but I would also make sure that I'm working with the right currencies, not trying to sort of, buy euro against the dollar or something, which I may well have done in the past.
Yeah.
If it had reached a sort of an area that I thought was was an area of support, and it had shown a sort of bearish pin bar, I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll hop into this for a bit. Technically, it looks like it's there, but now, of course, it just the window's open, and I can see what currencies make sense, what don't. And it makes a huge difference actually. But what's fun is taking it into the intraday stuff
Yeah.
and starting to sort of work with the news, choosing what your schedule is like for the week, what your commitments are, how the week's data is going to fit around that, and just picking and choosing a few things. And getting in and out of trades quickly. It suits my temperament much better,
Brilliant.
actually.
And did you think you'd ever be a intraday short term trader 4 months ago?
No, I just couldn't see how that would fit. Didn't make sense really, because
Yeah.
I had other commitments. I thought I can only do end of day. I can't do anything else. But actually, you can see quite clearly how it does fit in.
Exactly, and essentially, news doesn't come out just during the UK day. It comes out in the UK
And in
evening.
the
It
evenings
comes
as well.
out in the morning. It comes out in the Asian session. So again, one of the attractive things about the FX markets is there are 24-hour markets. So there are
Yes.
news events happening all the time. Some days we'll miss them. Some days we won't. And it's just a
Yes.
matter of planning and scheduling our time and our commitments around the events that we can trade.
Absolutely, totally, and I don't worry about that now. But to begin with, I think, oh my gosh, I've got to get to that, back to my desk for that point or that, and of course you can't do it, and then it would lead to all sorts of problems.
Yeah, and that's really nice. That's really nice to hear as well, because 4 months ago, before you started to learn about the news, you'd have absolutely dismissed intraday trading because of your current understanding of the markets at that point. And I think a lot of people are probably in a similar position to yourself, and that's why I specifically wanted to interview yourself today, is because you've now been able to overcome those preconceptions and actually now using intraday trading and trading around the news to your advantage, and it's actually working more to your personality and your style than what you previously thought. So you've opened your
That's true.
mind to the possibilities of news, and now it's working and paying dividends.
Yes, it's true. It's a complete turnaround. I didn't think it would work at all,
Yeah,
but it
no,
has.
that's
It's
and that's a really valid point to have. Is like we can't dismiss things; we should explore things. I'm not saying people just go and trade the news straight away. Is explore
No.
it, go and explore it, have an open mind to it, don't dismiss
Yes.
it, because it could be something that has a massively positive impact on your trading. And hopefully these
Yeah.
interviews
So
plus
true.
all the live trading videos and the blogs that I do, it's starting to really hit it home now, because I know a lot of my subscribers and followers have come from a technical background and are very
Mm.
evangelical about the technicals, and I still am too. But it's trying to
Yes.
convey
Yes.
the point where combining the fundamentals with those powerful technicals is a
Yes.
brilliant, powerful team to have, and can
Mm.
really help with the consistency and just the understanding of the market, why the market moves the way it does, rather than scratching our head going, why did the market just move 100 pips in 10 minutes? We
Yes.
know
Mm.
almost beforehand that there's likely to be a big move. So when it
Mm.
happens, it's not a surprise, and we're actually trading it and we're taking advantage of it rather than being worried by it. We are
Mm.
utilizing it and
And
trading it, and that's no better feeling than making 50 pips, 40 pips, 30 pips in 5-10 minutes. It's a
mm.
beautiful, beautiful feeling, and
Mm.
that's not luck. It's not flicking a coin. It's actually doing a little bit of work, so we tune into the market, so we can focus on trading the events where we expect that sort of reaction. When it does
Yes.
react as we expect, we take advantage of it, and when it doesn't, because not every news event is going to work out perfectly for us, we cut our losses as
Cut,
quickly as
exactly.
possible.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree. It's it's been a great sort of learning curve actually,
Brilliant,
and
absolutely wonderful.
hope to continue.
Yeah, no, long may it continue. Long may it continue. Well, I've seen that we've just gone over the hour mark. I did mention to you before that this would fly by, just
Yes,
because we're both passionate about talking about the markets, and it has absolutely flown by. So we'll
totally.
come to the final question. That really is, what are your future trading goals? So obviously you still enjoy your photography. Where do you want
Yes.
where do you want to be in 5
Well,
years' time, for example, with your trading?
well, I particularly now with the whole new sort of level of sort of looking at the markets through the fundamentals and things and seeing how this actually can work. My plan is to make this seriously a sort of whether it's a primary or a secondary viable income. So I want to make it work in a way that it pays really. That it's. I enjoy the trading, but at the end of the day, we're all in it for a reason. We
Yep,
want to make it financially viable, and I
of
can
course.
see that now becoming a reality.
Yep.
Um, I don't. I mean, as I say, I can see how it fits in around other commitments as well now. So it is something that can fit to these other commitments, which is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Complement your lifestyle rather than
Yeah,
completely
confident. Yeah,
change it.
I mean, maybe it will.
Yeah, no, of course. If
Yeah,
change it for the better, but obviously, I'm not saying
yeah,
I don't want trading to come in and stop you from doing the
yeah.
things you want to do. It's actually comes in, fits around the things you want to do, but
Mm,
maybe takes the financial burden away because it's bringing in
totally.
a nice, consistent profit for you.
That's exactly that. That's exactly where I see it.
Beautiful. Well,
And
I don't
that's
see it.
fantastic.
Yeah, I don't see it being too much longer. Like we've still got a few months ahead of us, but
Yes.
the more consistent months that you get under your belt, the more you're going to have confidence to put more capital in your account. So it gets to the point where you can take a few trades each month, but because you're well capitalized, that constitutes to a
Yes.
nice amount. Or potentially you get to the point where you can capitalize yourself via other means. And I know we work on a one-to-one basis, and we can talk
Yes.
on a one-to-one basis in terms of how you can do that. So there's many
Yes.
ways to do that, but first and foremost, as you've quite rightly mentioned, is get the consistency up. Then when you're
Yes.
consistent, you're naturally going to want to build the size of your capital, which is the
Yes.
key ingredient in terms of getting to the point where
Then,
only a few trades each month
yes.
generates a significant amount of money, or enough to cover your bills comfortably and
Yeah.
give you the excess on top to do whatever you want to do with it, and give you that freedom of choice. So the fact that
Yes.
you've got that goal, and no one deserves it more
It's a
than yourself,
very
based
definite.
on knowing your history and your background and how much time and effort you've committed to your trading. So you, like the other students that I work with, I'm motivated to help you get to where you want to be.
It's
So
brilliant, and I do feel that I'm on that path now. So that's a great feeling.
brilliant. Fantastic. Well,
Just,
Gavin, thank you so much for your time. I'm just
well,
going to
thank you.
just a little bit of a summary to finish this up. So I think that we've seen the progress that you've made, and your progress is down to one thing and one thing only: is hard hard work. You may not call it that because I know that the journey that you've been on, you've enjoyed it because you're passionate about trading. But I've personally, as the coach and the mentor, I've seen from afar how much effort you've put in to tune into the markets from a fundamental perspective, and this has allowed you to prepare well and therefore identify and execute some brilliant trades. You engage all the time, you ask questions, and you're not ashamed or afraid. This is important. You're not ashamed or afraid to point out your own mistakes and your weaknesses, and to ask for help when you need it. And I think this attitude and approach to your learning and development has been a major factor in your continued improvements, and to now starting to generate some solid and consistent returns from your trading. And so long as you continue this, I can only see you going from strength to strength. And I think what is nice about the relationship we have, and the relationship I have with many of my students, is that as much as I'd be happy chatting to you about the markets, I'd be more than happy to go and share a pint with you at the pub on a Friday evening. And I think this relationship, this friendly professional relationship, is a really powerful combination, because on one side I'm massively motivated and driven to help each and every client succeed, and on the other side, because of that friendship relationship, my students and yourself included are also comfortable to ask me for help and support when they need it most, and this for me makes a very powerful recipe for success on the trader journey, which is a challenging journey, but certainly very, very rewarding when we get when we crack it. So this just leads me now to say a massive thank you, Gavin, for taking time out your weekend to do this. I hope you've enjoyed it and felt
it's been great. Thank you.
Been valuable. So all it leaves me to say now is have a wonderful weekend, and no doubt we'll speak at some point early next week.
Thanks very much, Tom.
All right, cheers, Gavin. Take care. All the best.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Take care.